people eat 3 times a day, every day of the year. If they don't want that anymore, then yeah, it's got to change.
In a few days' time, everybody's going to be sitting down to a Christmas dinner which all of that is put on the table by a farmer.
I don't think that people should pay because they've died. That shouldn't be a thing. You've already paid tax on everything.
It's a land grab.
Absolutely. And what they're saying is they're trying to stop the corporations, but in order to implement this, they're stopping the everyday person, the 4th to 5th generation farmers, going back into their own land, and it's allowing big corporations that can afford this to take it over. So it's the exact opposite to what they're saying.
Just sit down with us and talk to us, because the problem is the mainstream media will twist figures and tell you what they want to tell you, but it's us that are actually struggling from it, and it's us that know what's actually going on. If you wanted to build a house, you'd talk to a builder and you get a builder's point of view and you get an architect's point of view on how to build a house, because 99% of the public don't know how to build a house. Or if you wanted to build a car, you talk to a mechanic and you talk to the experts in that field. Problem is, no one's talking to the experts. No one's talking to the farmers. Of some of these guys are 7, 8, 9 generations, 100, 150 years of farming on the same farm. Why don't you talk to us about what we know? Because we'll tell you the truth. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Thank you very much.
I'm back! And we'll be back and back and back again until they back down! So, tell them that over there in their fancy house of the Parliament. Yeah! Feed the country, for Christ's sake!
Me and another guy have come up from East Sussex, a place called Hartfield. We're here to protest against the government's inheritance tax and their other anti-agricultural parts of the budget, namely carbon tax on fertiliser and just the lack of support for British farming and British agriculture as a whole.
Hi, Simon Forthrop, councillor from Bromley. I'm here to support the farmers. We've got lots of farmers from Bromley down here today, and it's great to be out here and see them here and support them. First of all, I just want to say it's a great shame what the government are doing on inheritance tax. The tax in principle is an evil, horrible one. Everyone's paid their taxes throughout their life and then they come after you when you're dead. So effectively it's grave robbing. That's what it is, and it's got to be stopped.
Why are you here?
From Essex today.
Yeah, Essex.
And why did you come here today?
To protest the family farm tax, as we think it will be devastating for many, many families.
So you guys from farm yourself?
Yeah, we were family farms. Great-grandfather started farming. Grandfather, father, me, cousins, the whole family's been in farming for many, many years.
So how long has it been in the family?
Since 1937 we started farming.
Yeah, we've been farming, I'd be the 7th generation now at home, and so yeah, well over 100 years. It's very sad when you see the history, and I think people looking after the land, you feel a sense of responsibility to look after it, and I think we're in danger of losing that as people lose the ability to farm.
So I've come up from Brighton, about 3.5 hour drive up. I just come up because I've been contracting since I was little, and we're going to lose it all.
What do you go? What do you work on?
Mostly I do forestry work, but I contract with, this is one of my mates down behind us, and we just do agricultural contracting.
And how long has you been in the family? Is it family business?
No, it's not family business for me. My parents don't, but I've grown up with it. I grew up on a little farm doing sheep and cattle work, and then I went into proper contracting, and I've been doing it about 10 years.
What do you think is going to happen now? Everyone's out here.
I mean,
the government are going to listen?
I haven't got much of a choice not to listen. It's the big truth of it. You've only got to look at us, and if you look at who's here, it's all my generation, because we're the ones that are going to suffer.
what's your opinion on the use of, I can never pronounce it, bovine, the feed emissions?
Being honest, I don't know enough about it. On the face of it, I think they're trying to solve a problem which doesn't exist. I mean, I'm no scientist, but from what little I know, methane isn't necessarily the problem in climate change. And cattle are cheap to produce methane. So why are we?
About the health of the cattle.
Well, exactly. As I say, we don't
need to be a scientist, like to not feed them.
We don't know enough about it. And what seems crazy to me is that we've not learnt our lesson from BSE and foot and mouth in feeding things that animals aren't really designed to be fed. And going back to my point about us feeding our livestock predominantly on grass and maize and fodder beet and things like that, that's what they're designed to eat. It's natural for them.
Hey, got some wheat for you. I've got bread. I mean, one of the problems I've got with this inheritance tax bill, if it stops the smaller farms surviving, we're going to be relying more and more on imports. We just witness what's happened in Spain, you know, and that's going to reduce somewhat the imports from Spain. And that's just one weather event, right? We've got the Amazon that, because of the El Nino, has gone into reverse, yeah? And that's where all the soya comes from. We don't grow soya in this country, but we start using it as a replacement for our wheat and other products. Yeah.
Do we need it?
We don't need soya as such, but soya, it does come in as an import, but it's an import that we really should not be importing at all.
Massively damaging to the environment.
I mean, one of the
Yeah.
I mean, one of the problems I had was it was a few years ago when I realised that the palm olive groves in Indonesia, massive areas cleaned out for palm olive oil. And palm oil, which is then put in small amounts of all our food. Why? Why are we doing that? We don't need it. It just makes our food a little bit nicer. And that's all it is.
Cheaper to get that.
But why do we destroy the planet in order to do that? And who's behind it? Corporations. Corporations. They're not going to help to feed you.
Okay, we're here from Yes Farmers, Yes Food, Break the Climate Con. And we're here to get the big picture across to farmers as to how they can win, because concentrating on tax is actually a diversion. It's important, but what's happening around the world is there's a massive attack on farming and farmland, and mega corporations and Bill Gates have taken over millions of acres in America. We have to actually break the attacks. Behind the attacks, we have the big picture of the climate con. The truth about world climate is that it's actually cooling now, which they didn't tell you. The greenhouse theory is fake physics, and carbon dioxide levels follow temperatures, not the other way around. The climate con is there to break farming. So please, support farmers organising actual action to defeat the climate con. If we fail on that, farming will be destroyed and we'll have artificial food and massive imports. Farmers can resist by organising to sell directly to towns, organising to refuse to block dams and refuse to stop dredging, because these are green agenda things to cause floods. That's what happened in the Somerset levels. That's what's been happening in Spain. 104 dams around flooded areas in Spain were removed deliberately. This is all a game to make people think there's changing climate when it's actually deliberate flooding. So please, farmers, get to grip with the real issue. Trade directly with cities. Grow what you want, sell what you want. Refuse all these subsidies to make you do some stupid green agenda. Farmers have to break free and be independent. asking politicians to do something for you is a waste of time. All of them believe in the green agenda. All they'll do is lie and lie and lie and bring you forward into it. The Together operation is just the same. It was set up by Sunak and the biggest PR operation in the world in 2020 to guide people into no-win areas, talking about side issues instead of the key issue. The World Economic Forum are here to control and destroy us. All the stuff about bio-food, bio-milk is all something they're doing, and all of it is leading towards the destruction of dairy and farming. So we repeat, yes farmers, yes food, break the climate con. Thank you.
Hello.
The biggest problem is it's not understand. People don't understand. And the problem is, and I mean it in the nicest possible way, it's a lack of education. That's what it is. And people go, oh, well, the farmers should pay the taxes. We pay a shit ton of taxes. Like, compared to the average person, you look at how much tax we'll pay is just phenomenal. But we turn over 0.5% to 1%. You go to a bank and ask for a £10 million loan for a company and turn around and say, out of that £10 million, we're going to earn maybe 40,000 a year profit. No, every bank is going to laugh at you.
Exactly. That's
because
what
it's
people
like,
don't understand.
Yes, okay, a farm might be worth 10 million, but our grandparents never saw that 10 million. My parents never saw that 10 million. We'll never see that 10 million. Our kids, our grandkids, the lot will never see that money. It doesn't make any difference. And the inheritance side of things is everyone's like, oh, well, you should pay your inheritance tax because everyone else does. But the difference is, like yourself, I don't know, bar from doing this, if your parents were to die, you've got your own house, you've got your company, you've got your work. So if your parents pass away and you get their house, well, to you, that's just, it doesn't affect you because you've got your own house, you've got your own work.
Yes.
Okay, you might have to pay a third of that for inheritance tax, but actually, well, you just sell your parents' house, you have the money from it, and actually you've got a bit, you've lost a family member and gained a bit of money.
It's not comparable.
No,
to just
and that's the problem.
This is a business. It's a way of life. It's a family.
It's a livelihood,
and it feeds the country.
Yeah, it's a livelihood.
It's not just a business. It's not just a bit of land.
Everything.
Foreign aid bill that they announced straight after the budget of taxing us farmers in this country and then sending it to farmers abroad. Brazil being one of them, which is the 11th biggest economy in the world, sending money to India, who are in a space race with China, which I think anyone with any sense would see if they can afford to do that, they can afford to support their own farmers. And we just feel the British government should be backing us and not themselves, and the basic lies and going back on the budget.
So one of the two things that I'm policy-wise is just the inheritance tax overall. Why do people want to be taxed, or why are people being taxed merely because your family member has died? It doesn't make sense to me. And then the supposed stats of it's only affecting 500 farmers when 13,000 people came, and I'm sure there's more than 500 farms coming today as well. So I know that I was actually part of a crowd on a live TV, I won't say the channel, where Labour was spouting that it's going to, that 50, I think it said 56 or 52% of farms weren't owned by farmers. They were big corporations trying to avoid the tax. So they said, okay, we're putting this in to affect them. But there's over 200,000 farms. If 50%, we'll round it down, even if 50% of those are corporations, 500 is not making a dent. They didn't means test it. They're just saying anyone with a farm, throw that out.
We've come down up from Folkestone, sort of obviously Channel Tunnel area.
What do you work with?
We primarily are an agricultural contracting business. Obviously, we're here to support the farmers because without the farmers, we haven't got a business. We rely heavily on the farmers for our business. So if all the small farmers go, we haven't got a business.
But what should happen, and I would say this to everybody, there are lots of websites out there telling you where the farmers have their local shops. Use them. Go directly to the farmer. Cut out the middleman. Support your local farmers where you can, because they are the bedrock on which this country is built. We need their food, and if we support them, then we're doing the right thing. So I would say that. And of course, I always try and buy locally if I can, but it's not always easy.
So essentially go to the farmer's shops.
Yes.
Rather than the supermarket that they supply.
Absolutely, if you can. And of course, actually, that will benefit the rural communities, and the liberal elite in the middle of London will actually say, hang on a second, I can't get any food because everybody's going to the shops to get it. And that would be great, because if the liberal elite have to tighten their belts a bit, it might not be a bad thing.
Where have you guys come from today?
Folkestone in Kent.
Are you farmers?
Yes.
And why have you come here?
Because we feel really strongly about this unfair tax, and I strongly believe that if you've got something that you believe in, you stand up for it and you go and make your voice heard.
Well, the same. I think, this tax, if it goes ahead, which probably will, it's just going to destroy the smaller family farms. And, as we've just heard from all the speeches further back, people have worked for generations to produce food in all sorts of dreadful conditions, and it's just being eroded. So we feel very strongly about it.
Do you work on the same farm?
Yes,
together.
Mother and daughter.
Mother and daughter.
Yes.
So how long has your farm been with you?
Oh, for over 100 years.
Maybe 150?
50, yeah.
150
Since
plus years.
1850s.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you have on your farm?
We have arable, arable, livestock and flowers.
And are you already struggling over the past couple of years?
In certain areas, absolutely, yes. And it's so volatile, you never quite know from one year to the next which problem is going to be your big problem.
It's bad enough with all the sort of natural disasters, the dependence on the weather or the bad weather, and how that can affect crops and livestock and so on, without all the extras thrown in with extra taxes, increase in fuel, which I know affects everybody, but hugely for farmers with all the fuel that we have to use. So yeah, we've really been affected.
Have you been aware this has been happening around Europe, around the world? Do you think it's actually bigger than the UK government itself?
Yes.
You have the United Nations, they have Agenda 2030. They're planning to just take over all the land, restrict what we have.
I've seen stuff about that. My personal opinion is it's all to do with the control of food, because once you control the food, you control the people. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the background across Europe that farmers are protesting because of the anti-European farming policies that the European Parliament and governments are enforcing on their own farmers abroad.
All over Europe. And it started with the nitrogen tax, right? So they say, well, actually it was the GMOs, everything needs to be organic. Then it was, okay, now we're going to increase the price of fertilizer, spouting ecological things. Myself, I study zoology, I'm a marine biologist, I've done ecology myself, right? When you put a hell of a lot of fertilizers, nitrogens, into the soil, there is wash off. But then there's no more, then you can deal with that a lot easier. And there's no more than what if you put up a nuclear power plant or a coal power plant or anything. So I think it is a land grab, and the problem is with farmers, sorry for ranting, I do apologise, with farmers, once you take away that land, you reduce the amount of food you can produce. We have a massively growing population, and it was estimated in World War II with a very lower population that we'd starve within a month. What are we going to do this? We import so much food. If we get rid of the small farms that we do have, what if we get blockaded by a much larger country? No one's looking at it. Well, maybe they are, they just don't want to see it.
No farmers, no food! No farmers, no food! No farmers, no food!
I'm Steve Chilcott. I'm a supporter of Reform. I'm a branch chair of Reform in Ealing and Brent. I'm here today to support the farmers. And I think what our politicians have forgotten is that Britain is a farming nation. Farming and farmers form the backbone of this country, and I think a lot of city dwellers like us don't realise that. And of course, most of the current government cabinet are city dwellers. They haven't got the first idea about the rest of Britain and about rural issues, and I think they would not have predicted what we've got here today. You know, you annoy the farmers, you annoy a large proportion of the country, and a lot of the country are very, very supportive of our farmers, and they realise, the basic no farmers, no food. So we've got to protect our farms, we've got to protect our farmers. This is, the government have attacked two groups of people. First, they attacked the pensioners by taking their fuel allowance off of them. Then they went on to the farmers. They have got no idea the anger that is rising in this country against what this government is doing. And they're doing it based on lies. They didn't base their manifesto on this. Is it a pack of lies? And they are seriously paying off this country, and I'm not certain they're going to last 5 years, and I certainly hope they don't last 5 years. The backlash to what they're doing is huge, and it's going to be growing. They ain't going to last until Keir Starmer, the farmer harmer, is not going to last until 2029.
You've only got to look at who's been in and out of the country in the last few months, last 6 months. Yeah,
biggest farmland owner in America.
Exactly. Well, you look at how much America's screwed. I think it's something like, you might want to fact check it, but there's something like 60% of the pig farms in America are now owned by the Chinese. Well, that's only what's going to happen here. You really think they're going to... And people are saying that, this whole thing is going to reduce the cost of land. It's not. It's going to put the cost of land up. It's not because people will buy it. It's that, we'll put an industrial estate on, or we'll green it, and it's all this carbon offsetting. Well, I don't understand how people think, if a plane company plants 3 or 4 trees for your flight to Magaluf, how's that green?
I think a lot of it is down to the climate agenda. They seem to be very misguided in thinking that if we import our food, that has a lower carbon footprint than if we produce it here, which I just honestly cannot understand. Because if you import your beef, for example, from South America, then it'll probably be feedlot raised, and will have a higher carbon footprint than countries like ourselves that predominantly rear our beef from grass and forage and waste byproducts, basically. It's the same with oilseed rape. They banned the use of neonicotinoids a few years ago. Because of that, it's now not viable to grow it. It's too risky to grow it. So farmers have cut it out of rotation, but now we're having to import oilseed rape. And guess what? We're importing it from countries that are using neonicotinoids. Where's the logic in that?
It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, whatever you do with food, it is going to have some sort of impact on carbon. But I firmly believe that in this country, the food we produce isn't as carbon heavy as it's made out to be. I mean, sheep, for example. Where's the carbon footprint of sheep? They graze grass, which nothing else can graze. I can't eat grass. You can't eat grass. No one here can eat grass. What we can do is eat lamb, which turns that grass into a wonderful, healthy protein. They also produce a fantastic byproduct in wool, which has it's a wonder thing, wool. It's the insulation values, it's fire retardant, it's naturally regenerative. But yeah, we don't use it. We're all in favour of these man-made fibres now.
They also naturally fertilise the land.
Exactly, yeah. And if you believe the vegan movement and we get rid of livestock, what are we going to use as fertilisers? We already use human waste as a source of fertiliser, which a lot of people aren't happy about. But if we get rid of animal manures, what do we use? We have to use artificial, don't we?
So even that human waste is not just human waste. it's everything.
Well, that's the risk with using things like sewage sludge. Is it isn't just human waste in there. There can be various heavy metals. There might be residues from things like contraceptive pills or antibiotics. There's also microplastics. There's all sorts of nasties in there. We come from Tunbridge in Kent, and we're here to protest about the changes that the government made in the recent budget. Not just inheritance tax. There's also proposed tax on fertiliser. There's changes to national insurance contributions. But yeah, we're here to basically show the government that we've had enough and they need to have a bit of a rethink.
I've seen comments of old farmers driving around in their £100,000-200,000 tractors. The vast majority of these tractors here will be on finance, much like a normal person has finance on their car. The tractors get replaced every few years whilst they're still, so it costs less to replace them whilst they're still worth money, and because the seasons are so small and limited, we have very small windows to work in, so the machinery has to be ultra reliable because one major breakdown could ruin your whole year.
But I just want to deal with an issue, because the government are doubling down on the farmers. They're not just dealing with the inheritance tax and the land relief and all the rest of it. They're also changing the planning rules at the moment, which means that actually, so for example, about a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, in Bromley, we turned down a battery farm or battery storage facility on a farmland, and we turned that down. That was our local prerogative that we could do, but the government's now going to override those local planning abilities and actually override what we decide. So it means that actually the farmland is under threat in a different way, because it'll be attractive to farmers. By the way, Mr. Farmer, here's some money, lots of money. Stick up some solar panels. Stick up some battery storage facilities. Oh, and by the way, you get lots of money and you can retire. Well, I don't blame the farmers for taking that, because it's a hard life. And who would blame them for doing that? But the point is, as a local authority, we can now no longer stop that, or it will be very difficult to stop it because of what the government are doing in terms of their planning reforms. And they did that just yesterday, they announced it. So actually, farms are under threat in more than one way, and that's why I'm here today, to actually emphasise that and explain that people like us in Bromley can turn it down, but actually the government will come along and overrule it, and that's disgraceful.
We don't need to be importing. We've got enough arable land in this country to feed the nation, and they're putting the farmers out of business.
It's the small farmers. It's just this new tax is just going to cripple them. It's not. Yeah, it's just going to destroy farms.
And we can see look how many tractors are here at the moment.
You really got to show for how much it means to all these farmers here. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds here today. It is effective. They have come from all over the country to be here today. It truly affects them.
If these policies continue, will it be the end of independent farming in this country?
For many of us. Yeah, absolutely. I think it will change the way that the British farmers feed the public. I just don't see how it can continue how it has.
People eat 3 times a day, every day of the year. If they don't want that anymore, then it's got to change. We've got to make some change.
It's been happening all over Europe. It's been happening over the world.
Yeah.
They seem to keep going down the same route. Do you think it's a bit bigger than our government at the moment? Do you think it's like there's a global agenda? People above United Nations, World Economic Forum.
I don't know.
They seem to forget where their food comes from.
I think it varies a lot country to country, but there's an overarching sense that I think quite a few farmers are unhappy with how they're being treated by their governments.
So I'm Liam Smith, I'm from Canterbury, and we're here to support British farming and try and persuade the government to stop with the IHT. So all this food here is being donated to food banks. It's what British producers, we grow best, and the coffin is basically to show that Keir Starmer's killing off British farming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I went to a demonstration in Ealing yesterday against Ealing Council, which is a Labour-controlled cabal of liars who are so comfortable in their seats, just like Keir Starmer is in number 10 Downing Street. People are fed up. People that voted Labour are not going to vote Labour again. They've seen what this Labour Party are doing. They're a bunch of liars. They cannot be trusted. They are no better than the sleaze of the Tory government. In fact, they're worse than the sleaze of the Tory government. Didn't take long for us to discover the sleaze of this Labour government. People will not forgive them.
Nice one.
All right, wicked.
No, wicked.
I did read something a year or two ago about that growing vegetables in your garden or having allotments was probably damaging to the environment, and growing vegetables in your garden was contributing to global warming.
What do you think about global warming?
Yeah, don't get me started.
It's the cows, right?
Yes.
It's the cows.
Yeah.
We're not backing down. So, but they've got their figures so catastrophically wrong.
But do you think that's intentional?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Because if they play it down, it's a bit like you look at the BBC. They said there was 10,000 of us last month. There's 45 to 60,000 of us. We worked it out. 1.6 hectares at 3 people per square metre. It's 48,000 of us. I don't know where you can get, and that's not what was on all of us.
And get to the front of the queue.
Where have you come down from or up from?
Oh, only Tunbridge.
Right.
Yeah, so it's 30 miles, so
Not too bad.
It's not too bad.
How long did it take you in that?
2.5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
While, yeah.
Well, you know what London traffic's like.
Yeah.
Probably the last 10 miles we didn't go any slower than anyone else on the road, did we?
That's true, mate. That's very true. So why are you here today? I mean, it's obvious to me, but in your words, why are you here?
We're here to stick up for the farming community. We're all very upset about not just inheritance tax, there's a whole raft of changes in that budget, which are just crazy. But it doesn't only affect farmers, it affects the wider business community. So hopefully they might join us and come and start standing up for everyone, and hopefully we can get these ridiculous changes overturned.
Do you think they will? With enough push or not?
I think, well, you'd like to think so with enough push. I mean, obviously it's a peaceful protest here today, but yeah. I think if I were looking out of those windows over there and seeing hundreds of tractors, thinking it might be peaceful today, but who knows what might happen the next time we all come out if we don't get listened to.
Yeah.
So, no problem at all.
I come from near Newbury in Berkshire, and I'm here to support the farmers for the life that has been thrust upon them.
And so you a farmer yourself?
No, I don't farm, but we live in the country, and we're involved with the country itself. We appreciate how much the farmers do, which I think the ordinary person in the street doesn't realise. They just think it arrives on the shelf.
But why is that?
A bit more climate change.
Why do you think that is?
Why do you think? I just don't think it's taught at schools, or we're not aware of it. There's so much food around, so much choice. And we all think it just comes in packets.
Those from the supermarket tree.
Yes, yeah. And yes, that's right. And the 6 inches of subsoil and water is what is needed in the farmers to grow the food.
But there's one thing I see online, like people are going with the government narrative. It's not going to affect the regular farmers. It's only the rich people who are using farming land as an excuse to avoid inheritance tax. Right? Now there are people who believe that, who are going along with that. What do you say to these people?
We'll come into the country and find out.
Speak to the people that live
Speak to
there.
the people that live there, yes.
Because we're not all rich and landed and live in the high life. We are. My dad used to sell eggs, had chickens for eggs, and he had to stop it because it was just he was pushed out and out and out. And there's very few egg farmers now in our area because they just can't afford it. And it's the margins. They live on the edges of the margins, and big taxes like this you just can't account for. Insurance won't cover it. Insurance will be expensive if you had to cover it, and it's not feasible.
Our sons and daughters work for a pittance all their lives, 7 days a week, all winds and weathers, and they expect to have the farm at the end of the day, and now Starmer's trying to snatch it away from them. And you can't get youngsters to do any work as it is on farms. And if there's no incentive to work, you think your farm's going to be taken away from you, there won't be no point. So it's like never, never. We've got to stand up to this.
I sometimes wonder the diet we eat today. Sometimes the amount of fabrication that happens in our dietary, what the products we buy, is that not half the cause of why we've got so many allergies nowadays? I really don't know.
So I'm fifth generation farmer of small farmer, and I don't think the public generally understand what's going on with the government in them trying to destroy all small farms. 25% of small farms in Britain will disappear. Food prices are going to soar. We've seen a great increase in food prices over the last couple of years. Tesco's and Sainsbury's, everything now is £2 or £3. Well, take another 25% of the supply chain out and prices are going to be through the roof. You can't regenerate a farm once it's finished. There's hundreds of years of breeding of animals that have been put into animals. The costs of re-implementing a farm and starting again is just not feasible and viable. So for anyone to have death duties and then to find that money, it's just not there. It's not there, and the farms will disappear and food prices will soar.
They said on average across the whole of the UK, the average farm generates about £40,000 a year profit. That's not including wages. You look at it.
We're on the brink.
Yeah,
and they're just trying to finish everyone off.
You ask most of these guys, they will work 365 days a year. We'll work Christmas morning, Christmas Day, the lot. There isn't such thing as a holiday. And when you work out that we'll all do, say, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, you work out some of the farms turn over maybe 40,000. You're working for like £5 or £6 an hour on average across the whole year, working 7 days a week. If someone turned around to you and said, do you want to work for £60 a day, 7 days a week, all of your life? Most people are going to go, stupid, why would you do that? It's a lifestyle.
People are just going to end up having to sell to developers to find the cash, and then people will moan that we're building on green fields because, let's face it, they'll pay the highest prices to build houses. And that's how it's all going to get split up, and you lose the farms, you lose the land.
I've already got beans
and
on it.
like Matt says, it's not going to come back.
What do you think the developers will do with that land when they grab it?
Well, it's going to be built for houses, but again, are the houses ever being built for communities these days? They're not. They're huge developers making huge profits. They're not being built for local people. They're not being built for social housing. They've got it. The whole ethos is wrong. So that land, when it is grabbed, it isn't. It's the developers that are making the money. Yeah. Millions and millions of pounds. So how is that right? Food costs are going to rocket.
It's just, I'm in despair. I'm absolutely in despair with what is going on in the world. And I'm just grateful that I don't have children. Because I would be worrying about them.
That's a sad situation, right?
It's tragic.
Do you think it will change?
No. I can't see. The balance of power is now so unequal. We can protest all we like, they just don't listen to us.
What would you say to the current establishment?
They need to talk to people that live it. It's just so out of line with what people are living, and they are coming across as just not listening to the people. I mean, Labour are meant to be a party of the people, the working people, and I haven't met someone that works harder than a farmer. You don't get holidays, you're working 7 days a week. It's relentless, and people do it because that's their lifestyle. I think people just don't realise quite how much this country relies on farmers and the struggle they will have if they all go out of business.
It's huge buying power by the supermarkets, that are feeding the masses, and which they've screwed the farmers for the last 20, 30 years with the commodity price of what they're getting for the food. It's just not there. The money isn't there, but you cannot, once it's gone, it's gone. You won't get it back.
I'm happy over the long run. Look, this is happening all over Europe, especially over the last year. Do you think it's just bigger than the UK government? It's coming from above, it's coming from the United Nations, whatever forum.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that's happening everywhere.
Certainly there's a consistency for somebody that wants a world government, or it appears that way. And actually, the only way we can do it is fight it individually. We can't fight it globally, but we've got to fight it individually. Everybody knows that this is wrong. Everybody knows it's morally bankrupt to actually put all of our farmers out of business, to stop our food supply, leave it in the hand of some big corporation who will not care one iota about the food that you eat. Oh, and they'll be there with all these Bovar and all the rest of it, stuff that they feed into the cows to put in your milk, and nobody knows the long-term effects of that just yet. And those are the sort of things that we'll be faced with. And as I said, I'm here to try and help support the farmers, see if we can stop it. I don't hold my breath. I'm always optimistic, but this government, with their doubling down, I think they're in serious danger of annihilating our farming across this country.
If you're living off 1% of your capital, and then you get a bill for 20% of it, you have to sell up. That's it in a nutshell.
I know there are certain ones out there that think this is just rich farmers trying to get out of paying tax. We all pay tax. Some of us don't pay as much because we've earned very little, but we pay equivalent pro rata to what everyone else would pay. And this inheritance tax will not affect the really rich farms and corporations and that, because they'll be exempt and find loopholes for it. It'll be the little farmers like us that will be the ones that are hardest hit.
It's the small farmers. It's just this new tax is just going to cripple them. It's not. Yeah. It's just going to destroy farms.
And we can see it. Look how many tractors are here at the moment.
You really got to show for how much it means to all these farmers here. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds here today. It is effective. They have come from all over the country to be here today. Truly effective.
And if these policies continue, will it be the end of independent farming in this country?
For many of us. Yeah, absolutely.
The next generation's got to do something. And the problem is, the average age of a farmer's, when you look at the average age of a farmer across the UK, I think it's something like 58, 59 is the average age of a farmer. Well, most people retire by 50, 55, and it's like, well, hang on, so if the average age across farms is that age, I mean, there's a farm just down the road from mine and the bloke's 85, he's still farming, got no kids. When he goes, that'll be our poultry farm gone. It is what it is.
Hope you won't get to that, man. We're all here.
Oh yeah.
Hey, cheer up. That's what I mean. What would you say to the public who just seem to be unaware of all of this, who are going along with what they're reading in newspapers, what they're hearing from the cabinet, which is just that it's not going to affect the regular farmers. It's targeted at the rich, exploiting farmland.
I think I'd just ask them to maybe do a little bit more independent thought and some research themselves. I mean, it's not just about how much is your farm worth, it's about what's on your farm. The value of an animal, for instance a cow, is huge, and that's going to be added into the cost. And if you've got a herd of cows, that's all taken into account. It's not just how much is your field worth, it's a lot more than that.
And also, farmers, it's not just about producing food, it's about taking care of the countryside and really taking care of it with the natural world, the habitats, all the environment. And people want that. People go to the countryside, there's huge tourism and so on, and yet it's on the whole, farmers that are looking after that and keeping it so that everybody can enjoy it.
It tends to be the smaller family farmers who have the contracts to clear the roads for you when it's snowing in winter.
I mean, it's also a part of the ecosystem of the country, and I think one thing I read was that they want to open it up for young people to make more buildings and houses, and then one argument for it is that farmland just cuts up the countryside, but farmland, crops, is the countryside, right?
It is.
So if you had the opportunity to speak to Keir Starmer and his cabinet right now, what would you say to them?
I'd ask him to look at the figures and actually take the correct information and the right data and actually look into what a British farm provides for British people before he takes it away.
And to look for the future. You know, we provide food for the whole country, and if this is being whittled away, we're going to become more and more dependent on imports. And I know with the cost of living, you know, it's difficult and a lot of the imports are cheaper, but at the end of the day we want to try and be as self-sufficient as we can, and this isn't the right way to go about it.
What would you say to the public who just don't know? You side look, it's education, but what you're I think education is coming from people like you. What would you say to them to help them understand?
Just sit down with us and talk to us, because the problem is the mainstream media will twist figures and tell you what they want to tell you, but it's us that are actually struggling from it, and it's us that know what's actually going on. If you wanted to build a house, you'd talk to a builder and you get a builder's point of view and you get an architect's point of view on how to build a house, because 99% of the public don't know how to build a house. Or if you wanted to build a car, you talk to a mechanic and you talk to the experts in that field. Problem is, no one's talking to the experts. No one's talking to the farmers. Of some of these guys are 7, 8, 9 generations, 100, 150 years of farming on the same farm. Why don't you talk to us about what we know? Because we'll tell you the truth. And I think that's the biggest thing.
What would you say to Keir Starmer and his establishment, his cabinet?
Think again, come out into the countryside and see how we really live.
Right, so what would you say to the government if you could right now?
Reverse the family farm tax.
Go back. It's okay to admit you're wrong.
Last thing, so what would you say to the cabinet if you could speak to them right now?
Just back down. Just do the right thing, do your sums again, and just back British farming. It's nonsensical to kill off our domestic food production in favour of importing it. It makes no sense whatsoever. Keep the money in this country. Keep producing food where you can keep an eye on how it's produced, and just have a rethink on it.
Prepared to come back with more numbers if they
absolutely.
Don't go along
I think we're all determined enough. We will do whatever it takes now to get them to see sense over this.
Would you be prepared to come back with more numbers?
I mean, it's 9 ton.
If the government do not listen to what's happening right now?
Yes, I would, and I hope a lot of other farmers will join us if we have to come back again and again and again.
You guys be prepared to come back in future if the government don't back down?
Absolutely.
There's no way farmers will back down. We'll be back, and if they've seen how the French are, this is peaceful at the moment. Who knows what it will be like next time.
Willing to come back?
Oh, 100%. This is the beginning of the end. Like, we're not backing down. So, but they've got their figures so catastrophically wrong.
But do you think that's intentional?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Because if they play it down, it's a bit like you look at the BBC. They said there was 10,000 of us last month. There's 45 to 60,000 of us. We worked it out. 1.6 hectares at 3 people per square metre. It's 48,000 of us. I don't know where you can get, and that's not what was on all of us.
You need a doctor maybe once a year, and you need a solicitor maybe once in your life, but you need a farmer 3 times a day.